Hello and welcome to day 2 of P7 Prepare to Pass being organized by ACCA. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor for this session. The emphasis of the day 2 is to focus on ethical, quality and professional issues, which is a very significant part of a 100 marks paper. But just before entering into the ethical, quality and professional issues, let's first do a quick recap of the key learnings we had from the day 1 so that they are strongly implemented and strongly reinforced into your exam paper. Now, I hope you remember the day 1 yesterday was a day which was focused on risk and the 3 types of risk, which includes the audit risk, the risk of material misstatement, and the business risk. The key learnings from yesterday in terms of the risk topic, where we had concept building and an exercise of the past paper. If you look at the key learnings from the day yesterday, the first key learning was to look at the number of marks. You should know how many marks have been allocated to risk in a given case study. Knowing the marks, you need to divide the number of marks with 2, because every risk carries 2 marks, irrespective whether it is a business risk, audit risk, or a risk of material misstatement. Now, number of marks divided by 2 will give you your target, how many risks you need to find from a case study. Now, having done that, your second step should be to read the case, and to read the case from top down. And you then should start identifying the risk. If you are attempting a question on risk of material misstatement, or if you are attempting a question on audit risk, then I hope you remember something we discussed yesterday, that an ROMM or a business risk or an audit risk, would either be in the case study from the journal statements. So you have to look for the journal statements in the case studies. You have to look for the accounting treatments in the case study, or you have to look for the numbers, the financial statements, because all of them can provide risk towards building up your answer. Then secondly, if you're attempting a question on business risk, you still need to be top down. And when you're attempting a question on business risk, be assured that you need to find a problem from a case, a problem which you think can impact the business. If you find a problem from the case which you think can have a negative impact on the business, then you need to put up the impact of the business risk on the business. Now, I was very clear yesterday that the impact of an audit risk and a risk of material misstatement is on the financial statements. The impact of a business risk is on the business, and business is a much broader parameter. I hope you got the key learnings from the class yesterday or from the session yesterday, and you need to ensure that you are properly implementing the learnings from yesterday in terms of audit risk, the risk of material misstatement, and business risk. So be assured of the number of marks, be assured how to identify a risk, be assured how to write a risk, and be assured that no risk can end without an impact. Every risk carries an impact. So be very particular about the impact of risk, either on the financial statement or the impact on the business if it is a business risk question. I hope the learnings are reinforced and you will handle them appropriately. That was just the day 1 learning yesterday. Now, starting on with the day 2 agenda. The day 2 agenda today is to work on ethical, quality, and professional issues. As earlier mentioned, this is a very significant part of a 100 marks paper. I will make you realize that how important this topic is to your success or failure in a P7 exam. There are some session questions which will be going on into the webinar today, which includes the June 13, December 13, and December 15 questions. There are some questions which will be as your home assignments, which is June 15 and June 16. Now, in terms of preparing yourself for the topic ethical, quality, and professional issues, you need to read 2 articles. These articles are available on the ACCA P7 resources on the ACCA website. There is an article, Audit Quality, Perpetual Current Issue, which is a very important article which will help you understand what audit quality is, and that will help you define the parameter of what audit quality is in context of P7. Then there is a question there is an article tackling a P7 question on ethics. This is a very good article if you want to be good on ethics, if you want to be strong on ethics, because this article would really guide you how to write ethics, how to draft ethics in terms of an exam paper. So if you want to be good on the quality control side, then do read the article. If you want to be good on the ethical side, then you need to read the article on ethics. Now let's explore what's the challenge with this topic. When you look at the challenge with this topic in P7, I normally found students complaining that they're not very good into this topic. They're not very good in identifying the ethical, professional, and the quality control matters. What I have seen students is they're very good into ethical matters. They would be very good in identifying an ethical threat from a case study. They would be very good in identifying the self-review threat, the familiarity threat, the advocacy threat, the intimidation threat, the self-interest threat. But I think where students generally lack is to identify quality control, or is to identify broadly the professional issues. A lot of students have a very unclear definition of what is a professional issue. A lot of students does not identify a professional issue when they are reading the case study. So the purpose of the day 2 is to equip you for handling a question which comes so often in P7, which is right in front of your screens. In a P7 paper, you will come across a question which will ask you evaluate or assess or identify and explain, whichever verb is used by the examiner. But the question is evaluate the ethical, evaluate the quality control, evaluate the professional issues or matters arising in each of the situation and recommend actions. Now that's quite a comprehensive question which includes everything coming together. It includes ethics, it includes quality, it includes professional, and then the examiner is asking also give the actions. Now when you get a question like such, which is a reality of the P7 paper, this either appears most of the time in question 4. Question 4 has been a very specific question in the past many attempts to P7, or in rather most of the P7 attempts, where the question 4 has been on the topic which we are going through. Though it is an optional question, and a student might think about not choosing it in the exam paper, but having said that, this topic, where a student gets a question on ethical, quality, and professional issue, can even be part of question number 2. And in last few attempts, we have seen that the examiner has focused more on the ethical, quality, and professional issues, particularly in the question 2, which is then a mandatory question. You have no choice. So that means you should be better prepared with this topic. You should not think about ignoring this topic in the exam paper. So either a question 4 or a question 2, not just that, in a question 1. Now all of you know the question 1 is a mandatory question. Yesterday in the day 1, we were discussing the question 1 in the context of risk. But you need to assure that in a question 1 part, either in the part C of the question 1 or in the part D of the question 1, the examiner can ask you to identify and explain the ethical issues and the actions. But remember, these are only ethical issues. In a question 1, you will never come across quality control issues, or in a question 1, you will never come across professional issues. But in a question 1, the examiner do ask you to identify the ethical issues and the actions. But when it gets to the later part of P7, which is a question 4 or question 2, then the examiner put in a broad question which asks for the ethical, quality, and professional issues, where I believe student generally lacks the ability to put in a proper answer. So we're preparing ourselves for both. We're preparing ourselves for a question 1 where only ethical issue comes in. We're preparing ourselves for question 4. We're preparing ourselves for question 2. So let's get on to the challenge and let's explore what ethical matter means, what quality control matter means, and what professional matter means. The concept building, which will play a crucial part in terms of the second phase, which is to practice past paper. Now, I believe a lot of students could be weaker on concepts. A lot of students could be weaker on, or could be blur on what are professional issues. They could be blur on what are quality control issues. So let's first make a clarification of the terminologies. Ethical issues, something which you carry forward to P7 exams from F8, and that is the reason you should be very strong in ethics. We know ethics is a stronghold area of ACCA examination. The ethics comes in the F1 paper, then in the F8 paper, it is in the P1 paper, and then it's in the P7 paper. So you cannot have a lame excuse that you do not know what ethical issues are. Now let's revise what ethical issues are, which you do in the F8 paper. The ethical issues could be the threats to objectivity. And all of you know what threats to objectivity are. There are 5 threats to objectivity. And I hope all of you know the 5 threats to objectivity. The self-interest threat, the self-review threat, the advocacy threat, the intimidation threat, and the familiarity threat. You should find the threats in the case. Now, how would you do that? That's the second part of my discussion. Now, in terms of the threats to objectivity, there is a scenario in P7 which comes so often, that is offering a non-audit service to an existing client. Most of the ethical case in P7 goes around the second bullet, offering a non-audit service to an existing client. If you're offering a non-audit service to an existing client, you need to remember that it will give rise to several threats. Now, the article I recommended you to read, that was the Tackling a Paper P7 Question on Ethics. The article will give you a good idea of what are the threats which arise when you offer a non-audit service to an existing client. I'm just holding these several threats for the next slide, as the next slide covers in details what are those threats which arise when you offer a service to an existing client. So please be assured of that existing client. Secondly, you should know some journal examples of each threat. As you practice past papers, you would have so many examples of intimidation threat. You will have so many examples of self-review threat, familiarity threat, advocacy threat, so on and so forth. So the practice would give you many examples. I'll be sharing many examples with you as I proceed further. Then for every threat, you should know the safeguard. You should know how to mitigate the threat. So in terms of threats to objectivity, you should know the journal examples of threats. You should know what threats would arise when you're offering a service to an existing client, and then you should know the safeguards. Asam Iqbal, yes, there will be a namaz break in next 10 minutes. Just hold on for 10 minutes and I'll be coming over the namaz break. Then in terms of the ethical issues, you should know what conflict of interest is. Conflict of interest have come so many times in the past paper. Conflict of interest was such a strong area of the F8 exam as well. So you should know the conflict of interest and you should know what it is basically. And you should know how to be good on conflict of interest. Then you should know the concept of conflict of interest. That's the later part of the discussion where I will be coming in the next 10-15 minutes. You should know the safeguards of conflict of interest preparing for P7. Then another thing which wrap up the ethical issues is to know confidentiality. You should know confidentiality as a concept. You should know under what condition the auditor can whistleblow, under what condition the auditor can tell someone that there is something wrong happening in the company. So you should know the concept of confidentiality. Now, having said that, this is wrapping up ethics from P7 point of view. This is something which you should know. You should know the threats to objectivity. You should know offering a non-audit service to an existing client. You should know the journal examples of each threat. You should know the safeguards. Then you should be very good on conflict of interest and confidentiality. So this is the maximum boundary of ethics in P7, and you can refine this by reading the examiner article. I still need to do a lot of exercise on ethics as I move to the next slide, but just prior to taking the namaz break and just holding things up for that time, there is a question from Bilal Qureshi. He's asking, sir, it is rational decision when ethics comes in question 4, then we should escape that by choosing other option questions. Bilal, ethics is a good question. I think I can justify that in the next 2 to 3 hours. If by the end of the session you are comfortable with handling a question on ethics, I believe it is a scoring opportunity and you should opt for ethics if even it comes in question 4. But if you believe you are a bit blur on ethics and there is a better choice in question 3, then opt for question 3 in the section B. Sabah Khan is asking a question, sir, isn't point 2 part of point 1 under self-review threat? Sabah, I cannot get your question, sir. Isn't point 2 part of point 1 under the self-review threat? If you can justify your question, I'll be responding to that again. Muhammad Owais, my WhatsApp number, I'll be sharing that at the end of the session or in between the break, so you can get hold of my WhatsApp number. There is another query coming from Imran Riaz. So please repeat what is whistleblower. Yes, Imran, I'll be coming back to whistleblower after the namaz break, so don't worry about that. There is another question from Rajani, says integrity of the client is also an ethical issue which needs to be considered. Yes, if client screening, client integrity, that is more of a professional issue. Integrity of the auditor is an ethical issue, but integrity of a client, normally referred to as a client screening, is a professional issue. So I'll not consider integrity of the client in ethical issue. I'll consider integrity of the auditor in the ethical issue. So you have to be very specific about that. And Azimullah is asking, kindly tell what areas were covered yesterday. We covered risk yesterday, Azim. You can get hold of the session from Vimeo. The link has already been shared by ACCA. And IFRA and difficult to handle in exams. But you believe that this question on ethics is difficult. I'll be giving you proper clarification, Ifra, and you will be very confident by the end of the session to handle this. Sumaya, yes, I will be coming to quality and professional issues. Obviously, that's a major agenda of the session today, so don't be worried about that. The marks allocation, Muhammad Tahir Ansari, obviously the marks allocation is the agenda. I'll be coming across that. This was just to start up with things. There are many things to be explored within the session today. The marking schemes, the divisions, etc. Okay, we are taking a namaz break now. We are taking a namaz break. And the namaz break from 6:30 the local time in Pakistan to 6:40 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. We're taking the namaz break and we'll be resuming shortly after the namaz break. So please keep on hold. Please keep on hold for the namaz break. It's from 6:30 Pakistan Standard Time to 6:40 Pakistan Standard Time, and I'll be back discussing ethical and professional issues. Okay, welcome back from the Namaste break. We were focusing on ethical and professional issues, but before proceeding to that, let's first have a look at the questions coming from the students and then getting back to the topic. Sabah Khan, yes, I agree, sir. I mean, is non-audit service also covered in self-review thread under objectivity? Yes, agree with that, Sabah Khan. There is a question from Ifra Anjum asking, no, sir, I am talking about quality control question, which is tested in question 2. Ifra, I just missed your link. Let me connect to that, or you can repost your query incomplete, so I'll respond that over the next half an hour. Aksa, is it possible that in one issue there are 2 and more threads? Yes, obvious. One issue can lead to multiple threads, and that's exactly what you need to do when you're drafting in the answer. Khwaja Mutahir, what should be the order to attempt questions? I prefer the question should be attempted in order. Again, that is a query I'll be more specifically looking for on Saturday when I have a focus on the mock debriefing. Mohammed Khaza, can you repost your question? I have just lost it. Or you can repost your question on the WhatsApp group. I can respond to that after the end of the session because that pertains to the topic yesterday. Ashfaq, can you please confirm whether the whistleblow is newly added in P7? No, I'm just using whistleblow as a jargon, Ashfaq. Whistleblow means that the auditor needs to voluntary disclose something or obligatory inform something. So whistleblow is like disclosure of confidentiality. So I'm just using the proper jargon, which is whistleblow. And I hope I've answered your question, Ashfaq. Ifra, one last question. Sir, I'm talking about quality control questions, which is tested in question 2. Sir, I'm not talking about quality control questions, which is tested in question 2. Okay, Ifra, I'll come back to that. If you're asking the issues, the quality control issues, or how to handle them in the question number 2, yes, most of the time in question 2 you get the quality control issues. So I'll be addressing one of a question 2 in my session today. So don't be worried about that. And yes, Azimullah, I'll be differentiating between quality control and professional issues. Don't worry about that. Okay, keep posting your queries and keep posting your feedback as well. I'm going back to the start of our discussion where we were. Now, we were discussing the ethical issues, and we were discussing that ethical issues in P7 can arise from offering a non-audit service to an existing audit client. Now, this has been a very common scenario, and I hope you are very assured of that, particularly those students who are appearing in P7 for the first attempt. Please do read the examiner article, which is tackling a paper P7 question on ethics, so that you are very good onto identifying what ethical threats would arise if you're offering a service to your existing client. This is the most common scenario in a question on ethics in P7, where the audit firm needs to consider ethical and professional issues in offering a non-audit service to an existing client. When you offer a service, when you offer an additional service to your audit client to whom you're already offering audit, it can give rise to self-review or advocacy. It depends upon the case. Suppose the management has asked you, your client has asked you, that can you accompany them to a meeting with bank? Can you accompany them to a meeting with bank where a new loan will be negotiated? Now, obviously, if it is your audit client and you accompany your audit client to a meeting with a bank, then to accompany the audit client accompany means that you are advocating, because advocating means that you are promoting the client business interest. I hope you're clear with the definition of advocacy. Advocacy means that you're promoting the client business interest. So when you accompany the client to a meeting with a bank, you are basically advocating your client's business interest. But answering a question, I think, which came from one of the student, can one situation give rise to multiple threats? Now, when you accompany your client to a meeting with the bank, obviously it's giving rise to advocacy. But if the loan is negotiated or if the loan is successful in a meeting with the bank, then that loan will become a component of the financial statement later. Now, if the loan becomes a component of the financial statement later, then obviously this can give rise to a self-review threat because this is an existing audit client. So that is one statement giving rise to both threats. So if your existing client offer you a non-audit service, it can give rise to self-review or advocacy threat, or it can even give rise to both. But you have to be very specific in the case which of the threat would arise. Apart from the self-review threat and the advocacy threat, there is a threat known as self-interest. When you offer a service to your existing client, obviously you will generate income by providing a service, and the income you will generate by providing a service to your existing client, that will give rise to a self-interest threat. I normally tell my students that the self-interest is by default, because if you're offering an additional service to your existing client, then every additional service means that you are generating income. So generating income from every additional service is something which is by default, something which goes by default, something which goes by default. So when you get a question in which your audit client is asking you a service, then you have to be very particular about a self-review threat, an advocacy threat, and a self-interest threat. The radius will not move out of this because that's exactly true, and that's exactly even true because that's been covered in the Examiner article. So I hope you can tackle this equation effectively, and I'll come to this equation once I start with the past papers. Okay, towards the next slide, there is another question coming in. One of the students asked an interesting question, which I need to clarify for the rest as well. Asim Iqbal, advocacy and management threat both are same. Yes, management threat means when you step into the management responsibilities, or a management threat means when you assume the management responsibility. So when the auditor assumes the role of the management, which technically should have been done by the management, then that is a management threat. And that's exactly where you're promoting the business interest. That is an advocacy threat. So in the exam, you can write any one of them, either an advocacy threat or a management threat. Okay, once I get to the exam questions, Farooq Maqsood, I'll elaborate on the case of loan again, because loan has to become a component of the financial statement. And later when you come for the audit, you will be under a self-review threat because you will not be critically looking at the loan. You will not be critically checking the loan because you know this is the loan on which you have advocated. So psychologically, you will not be very skeptical looking at the loan because you think that the loan has been the one which you helped the client to get it. Okay, again, I'm holding questions. Any questions which remains unresponded, unattended, please keep posting that on the WhatsApp group because there is a series of questions coming in. I'll be looking at the question list after every 10-15 minutes, but if in that time any question goes off, please ensure that you put that onto the WhatsApp window so that I can solve that at the end of the session. Okay, moving back towards the next thing. When you're providing a non-audit service to your audit clients, it may create a self-review threat as discussed, it may create an advocacy threat, or it may create a self-interest threat. There's something which has been written in the Examiner article very clearly. It says, the audit firm providing a non-audit service to an audit client may create a self-review threat because is very important. Most of the time I've seen students, they do not write the reason of the threat. They will just tell examiner, this is a threat, this is a threat. They will not tell examiner why it is a threat. Please, you need to ensure that you justify why it is a threat. You cannot just score marks in P7 that just by telling the examiner, this is a threat. You need to tell examiner What is the threat? Why it is a threat? So it will give rise to a self-review threat because, take it very important, this is the article of the examiner, because the service provided may affect the transaction recorded in the financial statement on which the auditor must then express an opinion. This was exactly my point on loan. I think Farooq Maqsood, you asked that loan point. I think this justifies that. The examiner says it may create a self-review threat because the service provided may affect the transaction recorded in the financial statement on which the auditor must then express an opinion. In addition, a self-interest threat may arise. See, the examiner is also telling you why a self-interest threat would arise. You can justify that in the exam paper. It may arise due to the income generated from providing the non-audit service. So see, the examiner is giving you the reason of threat, and you can easily write that down in the exam paper. You cannot have a lame excuse that I do not know how to justify a threat, because the examiner has given you supports. The examiner has given you the article supporting why a threat, justify the threat, and the Lisa Weaver, she's written why it is a threat. Okay, and an advocacy threat may arise depending upon the type of service. I just mentioned advocacy threat would arise when you promote the client interest. So when you are promoting the client interest, an advocacy threat would arise. So please be very clear with these definitions. Please be very clear with the definition of the threats when it comes to offering a service to an existing client. Okay, moving onwards. Conflict of interest, such a common phenomenon in P7 exams. Such a common phenomenon in P7 exams comes so regularly. You have to be so good onto it. This is such an easy area in P7 and such a scoring area in P7. You can score so much. I hope you know the conflict of interest. As per the IESBA codes, there is nothing improper in a firm having two clients whose interests are in conflict, provided adequate safeguards are put in place. Can a firm do audit of two competitors? Right, so can a firm do audit of two competitors whose interests are in conflict? Obvious. The code of conduct is saying yes, there is nothing improper. So can we do audit? Can a same firm do audit of two competitors? The answer is yes. And yes means provided we have safeguards. So you need to tell examiner that a firm can provide audit of two competitors provided we have adequate safeguards. There is nothing improper. So safeguard includes notify the affected parties. If you are doing audit of competitors, you need to take permission from both. Both the parties should give you permission. Suppose if you're auditing Pepsi and you're auditing Coke, then you should notify both of them. Both of them should know the conflict. Both of them should know the risk and the issues. You need to notify the affected parties and you need to seek permission. You need to take permission. If both the clients gives the permission, then use the different teams. You can use a team for Pepsi, you can use a different team for Coke, provided both of them have given you permission to continue. But suppose Pepsi says, no, you cannot do audit of Coke if you're doing audit of Pepsi, then you have to decide between one. But in an exam context, that's unnecessary. In an exam context, when you're writing the safeguard, you will simply say, notify the affected parties and seek permission. Then use different teams because confidentiality is an issue. And confidentiality agreement signed. The risk with conflict of interest is that the information of one competitor can go to another. So how would you mitigate the risk of confidentiality? You need to sign a confidentiality agreement. You need to use different teams because using different teams would really help the risk of the information going from one client to another client. I normally tell students that conflict of interest and confidentiality are embedded, because when there is a conflict of interest issue between Pepsi and Coke, though the code of conduct says there is nothing improper, But when there is a conflict, there is a confidentiality problem. And that is the reason we make two teams, right? The two teams are made just to ensure that the risk of confidentiality is mitigated. So in the exam, you can tell the examiner that conflict of interest, and confidentiality are related. Gulam Kadir Chandio, please explain reason why it is improper to audit two clients. It is not improper. It says there is nothing improper. There is nothing improper. So that means, can we do audit of two competitors? Yes, there is nothing improper. Gulam Kadir Chandio, you are missing the word nothing. Nothing is improper means, can we do it? Yes. And obviously competitors are from the same industry, Gulam Kadir Chandio. So I hope that's irrelevant asking the same industry. I hope all of you are clear with conflict of interest as a concept. Let's do the past papers later to ensure how good you are on the application. Okay, one last thing from ethics, and then moving towards a more difficult target, which is quality control and professional issues. Okay, when we look at some common safeguards for threats, familiarity threat, for example, familiarity threat is such a common threat, you must be used to that from the F8 paper. Normally, when there is a familiarity, the better safeguard is the rotation of the person. If there is a familiarity due to any family relationship or familiarity due to any close friendship, familiarity due to family, familiarity due to friendship, then any person who have a family relationship or any person who have a friendship, the person should be rotated. So rotation sounds like a good safeguard. Farooq Maqsood, conflict of interest between partners? No, not at all. It's a conflict of interest between competitors. Don't confuse that with any other thing in P7. Self-review threat. Normally, the self-review threat is mitigated through different teams and an independent partner review. That's the most common safeguard when it comes to a self-review threat. So you should know what's the safeguard for a self-review threat in journal. Intimidation threat. Whenever there is an intimidation, you think the client is pressurizing you, you think the client is intimidating you, then you should discuss with those charged with governance. You should discuss it with the audit committee. So when you think the client is pressurizing you, the client is intimidating you, then in that context, you should discuss that with those charged with governance. Advocacy. When you think there is an advocacy issue, or you are promoting the client interest, most of the time advocacy has to be declined. Most of the time. I'm not saying in every case, but yes, in most of the time, a better safeguard for advocacy is to decline it. But can an advocacy be accepted? Can an advocacy be permissible? Yes, I'll come across to that. But yes, most of the time, the advocacy comes down with a polite decline. Self-interest. If you have a contingent fees, then the safeguard says, no, it's prohibited. You cannot have a contingent fee. So in an exam paper, if you come across a contingent fee factor, then it is prohibited. Having shares in a company, then obviously you have to sell shares or you have to change the person who have shares. Outstanding fees, then you have to delay the start of the service till the recovery is made. You cannot start the service till the time the recovery has been made. So you need to delay the start. Now, these are very common safeguards. If you can bring them on your fingertips and you can reproduce them in the exam paper, could be bonus marks. These are rote learn marks, though there is nothing much of rote learning in P7. But normally, the common threats and the common safeguards is something you can rote learn. Providing a non-audit service to an existing client, that can be rote learn. So those phenomena can be rote learned and brought to your fingertips. Okay, now just before proceeding to the next slide, after these common threats and safeguards, just having a quick look at the question bar. It says, can you kindly say what is TCWG, Muhammad Tariq? Muhammad Tariq, TCWG stands for those charged with governance. Those charged with governance means the directors, the board of directors, and also includes the non-executive directors, particularly the audit committee. Okay, there is a question from Amjad Ali. Are these safeguards used in both companies, that is private companies and listed companies? Yes, Amjad, familiarity is irrespective of listed, non-listed. Self-review Intimidation is irrespective. I'll conclude that towards the end of the session, Amjad Ali, that can the safeguards differ from listed to non-listed? Because in some cases, yes, they do. So I'm just holding your question, and I'll be responding to that at the end of my session when I make the final flow chart. Okay, there had been many more questions coming from Ifra. Can we also write court says partner and manager move after 5 years for 2 years? Yes, the court says the partner and the manager should be rotated, not move, rotated after 5 years for a 2-year cooling off. I think the better is 7 years, right? The 7-year is a better rule of thumb, rotating them after 7 years with a cooling off of 2 years. I think there was one good question from Imran Riaz. He was confused between outstanding fees is not a professional issue. No, outstanding fees is not a professional issue because primarily the outstanding fees give rise to an ethical threat. Yes, it can later become a professional issue that because you work for fees, and if you're not getting fees, then obviously it basically compromises your objective because your objective was to earn from a service. So if you're not earning from a service, then obviously that can lead down to a professional issue. I think that's a good understanding, Imran Riaz. If you have that understanding, then that's too good. Okay, again, any questions not being responded, please put them on WhatsApp. I'll be having a better reply to them because within the limitations of time, I'm keep looking at your questions, but responding them all together on 100% basis would be a bit difficult. I'll come back to questions in next 10 minutes. Okay, the question which was from Imran Riaz, that can it make a difference in writing safeguards between a listed company and a non-listed company? Yes, that will exactly be. Suppose you're offering a non-audit service to a non-listed company. Then in a non-listed company, because a non-listed company does not have any public interest, no public interest. So there is a lot of leniency when it comes to non-listed companies. If you're offering a service to a non-listed company, all the services are allowed. All is allowed. All services are allowed, provided you have safeguards. So for a non-listed company, a family business, an owner-managed company, a small company, a non-listed company, you have no issues. You can provide everything. You can provide any service, provided you have safeguards in place. But the case of a listed company is very difficult because a listed company have a public interest. Now, a public interest means things need to be more serious. If you're offering a service to a listed company and that service is material, now how you define material for a service? Just wait for 2 minutes. I'll coming back to it. But let me complete the flow chart first. If you're offering a service to a listed company which is material, then the court says it's prohibited. So no safeguards. So in an exam paper, if it is a listed company and you think that it is material either by amount or it is material either by nature, I'm just coming to that in the next 2 minutes, then it is prohibited. But if you think you're offering a service to a listed company which is immaterial, then that is allowed, provided you have safeguards. So you have to be clever. If it is a case on a non-listed company, then you should remember a simple rule of thumb. Everything is allowed, provided you put safeguards. But if it is a listed company, then you have to take a division between material, immaterial. If it is material, then it is prohibited. If it is immaterial, then that is allowed, provided you put safeguards in place. Now, how would you judge it is material by amount, listed company? Examiner would specify it as a listed company, right? So don't worry about that. If the examiner is not specifying, then when the question is silent, it is better to assume it is a non-listed company. But when the examiner specify it is a listed company, then obviously it's a listed company. And then you need to assure that the service being offered, is that material, is that immaterial? And how would you judge that? I'll come down to that with the proper equation, material by amount, material by nature. Okay, let's do an exercise on that. And just before changing topics, now if you're confused, if you're auditing a listed company, and that is your existing client, and the question says that you need to offer a non-audit service to your existing client, and the existing client is a listed company, then you need to consider that is this non-audit service material, or is this non-audit service immaterial? Now, I just told you it could be material by amount. It could be material by nature. The service, right? The service you're offering. So let's see how to go about it. If you think that the non-audit service is material, example, suppose the client is listed and it's asking you to offer a non-audit service. Suppose it asks you to review the internal controls over financial reporting. The client is asking you, can you review the internal controls over financial reporting? Now, obviously, it's a listed company. Now, obviously, if you review the internal controls over financial reporting, review gives rise to self-review threat. And if you review, you will get fees. So automatically becomes self-interest. Now, that was exactly what we were discussing 10 minutes ago, that if you offer a service to an existing client, either it gives rise to self-review or advocacy, but self-interest is something by default. Now, we've done that part. Review the internal controls of a financial of a financial reporting, FR, right? Muhammad Amir, FR means financial reporting. Now, we know if we review the internal controls of our financial reporting, the financial reporting controls leads to the financial statements. And financial statement is the objective of the auditor, is something where the auditor expressed an opinion. So in the absence of the amount, financial statements are material by nature, because that is the objective of the auditor. They're material by nature. So can I review the internal controls over financial reporting of a listed company? No, because it's material by nature, because financial reporting controls then directly impact upon the financial statements. So in that case, I need to be very particular. I hope my example to review the internal controls over financial reporting and then the financial reporting connecting to the financial statement is clear to the participants of this webinar. Muhammad Amir just answered your question. For FR means financial reporting. So FR is the financial reporting. Okay, another example. Suppose, again, it's a listed company and asking you to perform some service, existing client, everything remains same, by amount. Suppose they ask you to perform actuarial valuation. They ask you to perform actuarial valuation. Now, if the company is asking you to perform an actuarial valuation, being a listed company, now you know valuation will become a component of a financial statement. If you conduct an actuarial valuation of the employee benefits under IAS 19, now the valuation will lead to an impact on the financial statement. Now, how would you judge this actuarial valuation is material? Suppose the examiner gives you that the actuarial valuation is $105,000, or the pension liability on which you have to carry out an actuarial valuation is $105,000, and the total assets of the company is $35 million. Now, you can divide $105,000 of a pension liability with a $35 million of the total assets, and you can conclude very easily that this is immaterial. So can I perform an actuarial valuation for a listed company? Yes, provided the amount is immaterial. But can I perform an actuarial valuation for a listed company when the amount is material? No. Don't get shocked if a question on ethics give you numbers, give you total assets, give you profits, give you revenue, because the examiner wants you to calculate the materiality. So something can be material by amount, and you have to be very particular about that. So please be clear, listed company, material by amount, listed company, material by nature, the service, and try ensuring that you go with a better implementation. Try noting things down from the slide if you are. In the meanwhile, I'm just taking another 5 minutes onto the question answer session. Okay, Fawwa Batul is asking a question. In case where conflict of interest has not been incorporated adequately through safeguards, then that act of disciplinary will come under which context? In professional duty to care and breach, or of it, and that action will be count as a civil offense. Farwa Batul, that's too much, right? I think we've never seen in P7 that that the auditor has misused the conflict of interest. But if that comes so, yes, I agree with your answer that it will be a breach of the professional duties. It will be a breach of the code of conduct, that you're not informing the client, the competitors, and you're continuing with the audit. But sounds very illogical in context of P7. Never seen that such coming to P7. Muhammad Abadi, how about along associations and staff resign from firm? Long associations, right? Long association leads to familiarity, and long associations with clients, you should change the partner after every 7 years with a cooling off of 2 years. Then again, a lot of questions coming in from what threat would arise if partner or senior audit manager is hired by the firm. Mohammed Nadeem Beg, I'm coming to that. If someone resigns from a firm, joins the client, or if someone resigns from the client and join the firm, which is very common in P7, how would you deal with the ethical issues on those grounds? I'm just coming down to that. Parva Dalvi is asking a question, review of internal controls over other than financial reporting for listed company, that should be allowed, right? Yes, absolutely right. Internal controls over financial reporting is not allowed, but internal controls over non-financial reporting is allowed. Okay, what amount is considered to be material, sir? Obviously, you should know the materiality threshold. Tonderai Makoni, if I'm pronouncing that right, what amount is considered to be material? Obviously, you should know the materiality threshold. Something is material if it is half to 1% of revenue. Something is material if it's 5 to 10% of the profit. And something is material if it is 2 to 5% of the total assets. How is valuation material? Immaterial, Ujala Khalid. Yes, valuation depends upon the amount, right? The amount has to be considered. If the amount of the valuation in context of the total asset is immaterial, then it's immaterial. If the valuation in the context of the amount is material, then it's material. So, Ujala Khalid, what is cooling off? Cooling off is a 2-year time when someone is being rotated. Then the person should wait for 2 years before the person can be appointed again. Again, the queries not being addressed, please put them on the WhatsApp group, and I'll be looking for your feedback as well, that how the session is going so far, and how much is your interest into the session so far, or how would you rate the session so far. Your queries, the technical queries, I'm looking after them very carefully. Some of them will come in the later part of my session today, and some of them I will be solving over the WhatsApp group. Okay, moving further. Now, just moving from ethics to professional. Now, you should be very clear with ethics. You should be very clear with what ethics is in P7 exams. So ethics is about threats. Ethics is about conflict of interest. Ethics is about confidentiality. Ethics is about safeguards. I hope you can remember the boundaries of ethics. Now, just moving towards the next point, another very common case which comes in P7, one of the cases which we just addressed was offering a non-audit service to an existing client. The second case, which is very common in P7, is to identify and explain the ethical and professional issues. Ethical and professional issues in the following situations. There are some situations which are very common in P7 and you should be good into that. So if that gets repeated in March 18 exams, you can produce a better answer. Just like offering a non-audit service, let's see what is this equation. Accepting a new client. Suppose you are accepting a new client and the question asks, identify and explain the ethical and professional matters. Now, when you're accepting a new client, you need to conduct a proper diligence of the new client in which you need to consider the ethical and professional matters. When you're accepting a new client, you should first consider the client integrity, or you should first do a screening process. You should ensure that the client you are accepting is a good client. The client you are accepting is not a bad client. So initially, when the examiner asks you to identify and explain the ethical and professional matters for a new client, you should address the screening process or the client screening process as the first matter, which is about to know whether the client is good or the client is bad. Remember, in P7, you should not be classifying the issue. I think some of the students even asked me yesterday, inherent risk, controlled risk. You cannot classify the risk into inherent control. That's not the need of a professional paper. Same goes with this. You cannot tell examiner this is an ethical issue. You cannot tell examiner this is a professional issue. You're not writing the class of the issue, you're writing the issue. I've seen so many times student gets confused or remain confused because they're more worried about the class of the issue. You're not worried about explaining the issue, whatever that is. You're more worried about, is it a professional issue? No. Is it an ethical issue? No. Is it a quality control issue? So if you are worried about the classification of an issue, then you will not be good in attempting a question on this topic. So leave aside the class, just focus on what should be identified from a case and what is given in the case. Just try writing it down and just try keep scoring your marks. Okay, client integrity, right? The screening process. Second, if you are accepting a new client, then you need to communicate with the previous auditor. You need to ask the previous auditor why he resigned. And there could be some good reasons why he resigned, which you can incorporate when you are taking your decision of accepting a new client. Preconditions of audit are present. When you're accepting a new client, you need to ensure that the client knows the precondition. The client is aware of the preconditions. I hope all of you know the preconditions of the audit. The preconditions of the audit means that precondition of the audit means the management responsibilities. And I hope everyone knows what management responsibilities are in the context of audit. Deadlines. When you're accepting a new client, you should know the deadlines, how much time the management is giving you. Competence. You should consider your competence. Do you have competence to offer the service to an audit client? Competence means your specialization. Competence means you specialize. Competence means the industry, because every client comes from an industry. So are you specialized in that industry? Do you have competence? Can you offer this service to an audit client? Specialization, right? Specialization. Ethical issues. If you're accepting a new client, are there any ethical issues? If you're accepting a new client, is there an ethical issue like one of the partner holds share in that company? The partner has a brother who's working as a finance director in a client. So there might be some ethical issues which are in the case relating to a new client. You need to address the ethical issues. Safeguards, obviously if there is an ethical issue, then you need to write in the safeguards. And the fees, when you're accepting a new client, how much fees will you charge? Because fees is a very important commercial factor. Fees is a very important commercial matter. So when you're accepting a new client, you should ensure this checklist, which is right in front of you. This checklist includes the ethical matters. The checklist includes the professional matters. Most of the matters are professional, with only the ethical issues or with only the safeguards coming under the boundary of ethics. Okay, the next thing. When you're accepting a non-audit service from an existing client, we just addressed that. When you're accepting a non-audit service from an existing client, apart from knowing the self-review, the advocacy, the self-interest, you should know, do you have competence? Competence for the service. If the client is asking you to perform an actuarial valuation, do you know how an actuarial valuation is carried out? So do you have competence versus the service? The competence for a new client was a competence versus the industry. But when you're offering a service, then the competence is versus the nature of the service. Are you competent versus the nature of service? Deadlines. What are deadlines for the service to be completed? Then the ethical issues, we just addressed them, self-review, advocacy, and self-interest. And then obviously the safeguards. Please remember this list because this is a very common equation in P7. Accepting a new client, this is a very common equation. Accepting a non-audit service from an existing client. So if you know the list, you can then explore the list within the context of a case study. So please be assured of these parameters. Identify the ethical and professional matters in the following situations. When you're accepting a new client, what are ethical issues accepting a new client? What are professional issues? But again, you need not to classify the issue. Okay, how to differentiate between ethical and professional issues? What are ethical issues? What are professional issues? What are quality control issues? You need to hold your temperament for the next half an hour. As I move towards the winding up, I'll be making a proper illustration of that, and that will be very effective for all the attendees who are into this webinar. Why is fees not included in a non-audit service? Yes, the fees is included in the non-audit service. You can see that appearing on your screen now. Amjad Ali. Okay, I hope you're clear with this parameter. We'll come across with an exam paper. Okay, now comes your favorite question, which has been a favorite question so far across the panel of questions I'm looking at in front of my screen. What are professional issues? I can see your eagerness on that. I can see how eager you are, how confused you are on professional issues. Most of the students tend to be confused on what are professional issues. Because honestly, suppose let me do it this way. Okay, let me do it this way, which can really help you out. Suppose you look at a case in P7, right? And the case says identify ethical and professional issues. Now, what I have seen student is they will read the case from start to end. They will read the case from start to end, which is very good. Now, when they're reading the case, they will identify very clearly what are ethical issues. Because you're good on ethics, because that's coming from FA, that's coming from P1. All of you can find from a case, this is self-review, this is advocacy, this is familiarity, no, this is intimidation, this is a conflict of interest. All of you are so good onto that. So will you be able to identify the ethical issues from the case? I believe yes, because I believe students are very good into it. But when you're reading the case, what are professional issues? Where are they in the case? That is a big question mark. How would you identify them? How would you know which line, which sentence give rise to an ethical issue? Ethical issues. So let's do an exercise. Let's do an exercise that how would you know that what are professional issues within the case? Okay, first clearly understand what are professional issues in a proper sense. Then we'll go about exploring the past papers, and I'll give you a better tricks, techniques of how to dig them out from a case study. Okay, let's make a definition. Professional issues includes, but are not limited to. That is not an exhaustive list, but that will make your sense clear of what professional issues are. Commercial matters. When I break professional P, the professional includes so many things. Professional includes commercial. Professional is a broad term, right? Professional includes commercial. Professional includes quality control. Professional includes professional behavior. Professional behavior. So from an examination point of view, anything which is around commercial is a professional issue. Anything which is around quality control, anything which is compromising your quality control can be a professional issue. I'll justify how. And your professional behavior. Okay, let's go one by one. Professional issues, right, are broad, and as per the flow chart, can include 1, 2, 3. Commercial fees, obviously that's one of the objective of an audit firm, right? The fees. If you're offering a service, I think the very first thing that will strike your mind is how much fees will I get? If you're accepting a new client, I think the very first thing which will strike your mind is how much fees will I get? I think that is one of the underlying objective or one of the core objective of an audit firm. So how much fees will I get? Yes, that fees can later convert into self-interest, or that fees can later convert into an ethical dilemma. But at the very start of a service, the fees is a commercial factor. And I think it's true that whatever services we're offering them for commercial benefits. We're offering them for getting a fees. So fees, firstly, is a commercial factor. Is firstly the professional factor. Okay, the next. Invitation from a client. This is not initiation as coming on your slides. This is invitation from a client. Suppose the client has invited you. The client has invited you to offer a service. The client has invited you the client has invited you towards a new client, or a new client has invited you. Think realistically, if you got an invitation, is that not an opportunity? Because if an invitation comes in front of you, you will be looking at an invitation in terms of money. You think, I have been invited, and if I accept the invitation, I'll get money. Because either it's an invitation towards a service, or a new client is inviting you. So invitation for an audit firm is a lot of money. So again, a commercial mindset. Okay, potential loss of a client. If you think you will lose a client, then if commercial can be an opportunity, if you think the money coming in, then the money can even flow out. There are two things, right? Either you gain, either you lose in terms of commercial. If you lose a client, if the client changes the auditor, if the client asks the auditor to step down, if the client removes the auditor, then there is a loss of client. So fees can be an opportunity, right? Commercial can be an opportunity. When you're getting an invitation, commercial can be an opportunity when you're getting the fees. Commercial can be a loss when you lose a client. So in P7, you have to be very clear. You have to be very clear on commercial sides. P7 examiner wants that you have a commercial thinking. You have a commercial ability. You can portray the commercial ability because you are a manager. And being a manager, you should look at a commercial side. You should look at a commercial side apart from ethics. Okay, so commercial is part of professional, right? So if you are doing any case, I'll just do that with you. So I'll be reading a case to justify how can you think about commercial opportunities and commercial losses within a case study. Okay, secondly, quality control methods. There are a lot of things which compromise the quality of the audit, and that has been very common in P7 past papers. Suppose inappropriate direction, inappropriate planning. I think if you start an audit with an inappropriate planning, lack of planning, I think lack of planning gives compromise the quality, because if you're not executing something very well, you're not planning something very well, the end result would be compromised. So if you start an audit with a bad quality, inappropriate planning, then obviously that will lead down to the compromisation of quality. Inappropriate supervision. Suppose during an audit, the examiner says the manager is away on holidays. The manager is absent. Now, if you think your manager is absent from the audit or the manager is away on holidays, then who is supervising the audit? Think about the juniors. Are they getting proper guidance? Because the manager is absent. The manager is away on holidays. So that means the inappropriate supervision would even lead to compromisation of quality. Inappropriate review of work. The working papers were not reviewed. The working papers were not checked. Now, obviously, that means if there is any lacking in the evidence, and it has not been checked for, it has not been reviewed for, so the detection risk would increase because there has not been any review of the work. Tight deadlines. If there are tight deadlines, imagine if there are tight deadlines, you will do things in rush. So if you are doing things in rush, in quick, in hurry, that will automatically lead down to the compromisation of quality. Then ethical issues. Connected. If there is an ethical dilemma, is that true the ethical dilemma will compromise the quality even? The ethical dilemma will compromise the quality. If we are not independent, will that compromise the quality? I hope I can get the feedback from the attendees. If we are not independent, will that compromise the quality? Ahmad Bashir, Augustine, Asim Iqbal, they're all saying yes. So are they connected? Yes, they are connected. That means, so can ethical issue become a professional issue? If ethics is compromised, it will lead down to the impairment of the quality. So they are linked. Yes, all of you are in agreement of that. That's good to see. You are active into the webinar and you are taking interest into the webinar. Thank you so much for your quick feedback with those yes answers coming in. Okay, another thing, competence. Competence is another factor, right? If you have competence, then that means the quality will enhance. Is that true? If you have competence, the quality will enhance. Again, feedback, attendees, yes. Again, that's good. If you are incompetent, that will compromise the quality. So that's good. That's good responding from attendees. Thank you for that long list of yes coming in. That assures that you're understanding the concept. Okay, so if there is a junior working on something, then if the junior is working on something, then that can compromise the quality, right? And if a manager is working on something, that is much better. So if I say the junior worked on going concern, and if I say the manager worked on going concern, will that make a big difference? Manager worked on going concern, will that boost quality? And if a junior worked on the going concern, will that compromise the quality? That's good. So competence is another quality factor. There are a lot of factors which interlink, right? Ethics can lead to the compromisation of quality. Competence can lead to the compromisation of quality. And then quality is a professional issue. So anything, the quality is a professional issue. Commercial is a professional issue. Professional behavior is a professional issue. They all get down to one. But you should know the linking. Yes, agree, Kamran Nazir. It's judgmental, right? Going concern is judgmental. So obviously you cannot give that to a junior. Anything that is not ethical is professional. Yes, obviously. See my flow chart in front of you. Commercial, quality, professional behavior. What does opportunity? What does under commercial means? That OPP cephaloreas is opportunity. Opportunity. Okay, professional behavior. Comply with laws, regulations. Behavior. Skepticism. Should auditor be skeptical? He should be. So if the auditor is not skeptical, is that another professional behavior lacking? So auditor needs to be skeptical to demonstrate a proper behavior. So professional behavior means the auditor needs to comply with laws. Professional behavior means the auditor needs to comply with regulations. So if the auditor is not demonstrating a professional behavior, then obviously that will lead down to the compromisation of quality, and obviously that will be a professional issue. Asam Iqbal, ACCA 5 fundamental principles reflects compromise in quality. Yes, that's true. Lack of integrity, lack of objectivity, lack of competence, lack of behavior ultimately affects your quality. So they're all interlinked principles. You're getting perfectly, Asam Iqbal. That question really boosts my morale conducting this webinar session, that you're getting my point of view. Okay, so that long list of professional issues, will that be in any way helping you in exam paper? That flow chart of professional issues, commercial, quality, professional behavior, is that making some picture clear on professional issues? I need your response, because again, professional issues will come in the exam paper and I'll be better handling that. But in terms of the examples, in terms of this flow chart, that professional includes commercial, professional includes quality control, professional includes professional behavior. Is that flow chart clear to everyone? Muhammad Hasnan, sorry, your question, please put that on a WhatsApp group, because obviously within the time constraint and within the focus on the webinar, I think I've missed your question. So sorry. I hope you can repost that. Yes, Sarah Khan, the ethical issue means the ethical threats, obviously, and any ethical threat will compromise the quality. What about the liability of an auditor? Is that a professional issue? Yes, Augustine, that is a professional issue. If the auditor is liable, that is a professional issue. I'm just winding a professional issue. If you can wait for 5 minutes, putting any of your questions, but make me a clarification. Are you understanding some sense of professional issues in terms of examples? I need a yes and no answer quickly from the attendees. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, I try making it more clear. Amjad Ali is asking how fees is a professional issue. So obviously, fees is your objective. Audit firm works for fees. So fees is professional. Obviously, your objective is to get fees. Your objective is to gain fees. So obviously, fees has to be a professional issue. It can later become an ethical issue. Thank you so much for that long list of yes coming from the attendees. Okay, let's get to a final equation of professional and then start the much needed exam practice. Okay, Mohammed Saad, not much clear as I joined now. You need to listen to the recording later, and I hope you will get clear with that. Okay, now let's do an exercise. Okay, now just before starting off with an exam paper, let's conclude what we have learned. Let's conclude, because that conclusion will reinforce a lot of queries that is coming on. Let me make it clarified, and I hope I'll be answering many of those questions. Okay, let's make a final equation. If a question comes on ethical, quality control and professional issues, then this ethical side, I hope you can be good at, and you can identify the ethical side. Is that uh, what I believe is true? The panel, I need attendees, I need the yes and no answers. Can you handle the ethical side in a question? Can you identify the ethical side from a question? Can you write in the safeguards? So can I assure the ethical side is a stronger parameter? Okay, thank you, quite well. Somewhat, yes, Muhammad Umar, you need to become more clear on that. I hope you get clear with practice as I move towards the practice session. And okay, thanks for that long list of yes. Okay, let's go one step ahead. Quality control issues. Now, when you are identifying a quality control issue, I did recommended you to read the article. I hope when you read the article, you will come good with the quality control issues. And I've given you some examples of quality control just on the preceding slide. One thing, quality control issues, the article of the examiner would help you with some examples. And the good thing is the examples given in the article of the examiner are tested on a frequent basis. So please don't skip the article of the examiner on quality control, which I recommended you at the start of the session. Okay, now you know the examples of quality control, right? That was just on the preceding slide. So you can find something like inappropriate direction, inappropriate planning, inappropriate supervision. You think junior is working on something, can all be the quality control issues. Tight deadlines, because I think that there was a question, tight deadlines, that tight deadline means you do work on rush, quick. When you do things in rush, automatically that compromises quality. So if there is a tight deadline and you need to achieve it, you will be in a panic state, you will be in a rush state, and that will compromise the quality. So I think the quality control issues can be identified from a case. The quality control issues, the examples can help you to identify what quality control issues are. And more importantly, the article of the examiner can help you identify what quality control issues are. So please be assured what are quality control issues, and please assure that how the quality control issues compromise the quality of the audit, audit quality. So you should know the factors which compromise the quality of the audit. And I think that's more natural. Anything in the exam paper you think will hit my quality, I think things can be natural here. Junior is working on deferred tax, and you think, oh, how can a junior work on a deferred tax? He's not very competent on that. Something like that, the management is not increasing your fees from the last year, and you think management is not increasing my fees from the last year. Obviously, if the management is not increasing your fees, you will compromise your quality because you're working for fees. So I think you can pick up the quality control issues. Can I get a yes or no answers from the attendees? Reading the article and looking at my list of examples on the preceding slide, can you be able to identify issues which can compromise the quality? And once I start with the past paper practice, I think you will be good into that. Zishan Ali Abasi, not yet, kind of. Ujala Khalid, I hope you will get clear once I do the practice session over the next 1 hour. So I'm looking forward, Ujala Khalid, I'm looking forward, Zishan Ali Abasi, to get a clear yes from you. Anything that limits the audit scope, limits the quality. Asim Iqbal, yes. Yes, if the management limits you, then that can compromise the quality. Elaborating is an issue. Several areas not getting that. Please repost it. It's right, Asim Iqbal. I think that's the best answer. Any specific article for QC? I recommended the QC article that's on my slides, the resources which was shared with you by ACCA. So please look at the QC article which has been referred, and so on and so forth. How tight deadline is both an ethical and professional issue. Tight deadline, in a tight deadline, I don't believe tight deadline is an ethical issue. I did justify tight deadline in an ethical issue? No, tight deadline is a professional issue, because in a tight deadline, you will be in a rush. When you are in a rush, you will be quick. When you are quick, you're compromising the quality. So I think nothing of an ethical issue with a tight deadline, but it is a professional issue. It is a professional issue. Tight deadline reflects quality issue. Perfectly, yes, Asim Iqbal. Okay, again, holding any questions unattended, please post them on the WhatsApp group. I'll be looking forward to that. I hope all of you are in the WhatsApp group. I'll be sharing my number again in the break coming shortly, and you can join in the WhatsApp group for putting your queries. Okay, the last thing, if the question asks you to identify the professional issues. Now, I've just given you the flow chart of professional issues. It includes quality. It includes quality. And it includes commercial. So anything which you think is either positively impacting fees or anything which is negatively impacting fees has to be taken as commercial. So either the fees will be gain, you will gain the fees, or either you will lose the fees. So it has to be taken as a professional issue. And then your behavior. You need to see the behavior of the auditor in the case. You need to see how skeptical the auditor has been in the case. You need to see, has the auditor complied with laws in the case? So if the auditor has been in complying, has been demonstrating a good behavior, then that means you are identifying the professional issues from the case study. Yes, Amjad Ali, both relates quality and professional issues. Under the broader parameter, quality falls under professional. But if you separate, then obviously the examples I've given you would help you out. Ahmad Malik is saying, I'm not getting professional issues. Ahmad, let me start an exam paper, would make things clarified in that context, and you will be very clear, because still a lot needs to be done. We are one step prior to be in an excellent mode. So just keep holding your queries, Imad Malik, and I hope you will be clear on professional issues over the next 1 hour. Okay, is that clear in terms of ethical, quality, professional issues before I do one last exercise and start off with exam papers? Because I think the exam papers would resolve most of your queries and most of your concerns. Those of you who are taking P7 for the first time, you need to refine this topic. You need to read the articles. You need to be very clear on this topic if you think about attempting this as a choice question in P7. Those of you who are repeating, please, you need to be clarified on this topic as well. There might be a lot of misconceptions you have in mind. You might have attempted this P7 many times, and you might be a bit confused with a lot of misconceptions going in your mind, and to clarify them within a span of 3 hours is pretty difficult. But I hope you refine your mind. You refine your mind and you put all the misconceptions out. You put all the misconceptions out and things starts getting better. Okay. One last thing. When we look at the ethical issue in P7, the ethical issue is basically a threat, right? So it has to be something in negative. So ethical issues are negative issues, right? Mohammed Ashraf, a 5 minutes break, please. Please hold for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you'll get a 10 minutes break. So I hope you can keep your temperaments for another 10 minutes. So I'm just winding up. So hold your temperaments, Mohammed Ashraf. Okay, so ethical issues are all negative, right? Now be clear. When you write an ethical issue, you need to justify the threat and why it is a threat. When you write why it is a threat, you're taking a 1.5 marks So that means every threat, every ethical threat carries 1.5 marks. Sam is asking, what do you mean by all negative? Obviously, threats are negative, right? There is nothing positive about threats, advocacy, self-review, familiarity. They all give rise to an ethical dilemma. So they're all negative issues, right? They're all negative issues. Then when you write a safeguard for a threat, that will give you 1 mark. So that means for a threat and a safeguard, you're taking a 2.5 marks. So whenever you justify a threat, you will get 1.5 marks. Whenever you justify a safeguard, you will get 1 mark. So this is the marking scheme for ethical issues, right? This is a marking scheme for ethical issues only. I'm coming to the professional issues, but I hope the marking scheme for ethical issue is clear. So when you write upon threats, you get 1.5 marks. And when you write upon the safeguards, you get 1. Is everyone clear with the marking scheme of ethical issues? I read responses. Okay, Asim Iqbal, everyone, Saifullah Riyaz, Muhammad Ashraf. Okay, the list goes on. Okay, I hope that clarifies the ethics, that clarifies the marking schemes for ethics. Okay, then one last thing, and taking off the break. Lot of students, attendees are desperate about break. Okay, we'll be taking that. I know you need to cool down, and you need to cool down ahead of that practice session coming in the last 1 hour. Okay, one last thing. Professional issues. Let's see the marking scheme. Let's see how to go about them. This is one final word on professional issues. Now, I hope you all know professional issues means either a quality control issue. Professional issue means either a professional behavior. A professional issue means commercial. Is that true? Yes or no? I need a quick response. So professional issue means 3. Yes. There is a question from Hen. He's saying, why so many breaks? Yes, not so many breaks. The breaks are for prayers, namaz, and there would be another break coming in the next 10 minutes for just 10 minutes. That would be the prayer breaks, because need to consider the diversity of the students, which is on the webinar. So according to that, I need to structure the breaks. Not many breaks, right? This would just be the second break, and that itself was 10 minutes. Professional issues. Okay, professional issues. First of all, professional issues can be positive, and professional issues can be negative. Now, all of you will get confused with that. All of you say, how can a professional issue be positive and negative? Because a lot of you have not yet come out of clarifying yourself on professional issues. So let's do this exercise and see how you go about it. Positive. Suppose an example. The question says, the engagement partner is a qualified actuary. The engagement partner is a qualified actuary, and the client has asked you, to perform actuarial valuation, AV, actuarial valuation. We just discussed that in ethics. Suppose the client has asked you to perform an actuarial valuation, and the question says that the partner is a qualified actuary. Is that a plus point? That one of the partners is a qualified actuary? Yes and no? Positive? Yes, exactly. That is my point. So one of the partners is a qualified actuary, and the client has asked you to perform actuarial valuation. So is this qualified actuary becoming something positive? And does that mean the partner has competence? And if the partner has competence to offer the actuarial valuation, will it boost the quality? Will it boost the quality of the service? Again, yes and no. So see how it is linked? The partner is a qualified actuary. That means the partner has the competence, yes. And if a person have competence, will that boost quality of the service? Definite yes. So is that a positive professional issue? A lot of time I've seen students in P7, they ignore positive things. If there is a positive thing, please appreciate that. If you appreciate, if you favor something positive, you will still get 1.5 marks. I've seen a lot of students ignoring positive things. They sideline positive things in a case study. If there is something positive, try to appreciate that, try to favor that, because every time you appreciate something positive in a question on professional issues or in a question on quality control issues, then you're scoring 1.5 marks for that. I think you mean professional matter. A professional issue can't be positive. Neither broaden your definition. Issue does not mean something negative. Issue can be positive. Issue can be negative. Unfortunately, a lot of us has a very narrow definition to issue. Most of the time we think issue negative. Issue can be something positive. So you need to deal with issue in a broader sense. So issue or matter. A matter can be positive, a matter can be negative. An issue can be positive and an issue can be negative. So is everyone clear with that? So anything can be positive. Will you appreciate the positive things? Will you favor positive things? Have you ever done that in the prior exams, those repeating P7? How many times have you omitted the positive things from your answers? How many times you have not identified positive things from exam papers? Remember, you are a manager. You are a manager, so you need to look into every positive and negative things. You cannot just look into negative things. Augustine, ethics is all negative. Ethics is all negative in P7, so you will never find anything positive in ethics. So please leave that. The only positive things you will find is under professional issues. Asim Iqbal, are we not partners? No, you are manager. The examiner has given you a very good designation. You cannot be partner by reaching the P7 paper, but you can be a manager reaching the P7 paper. Okay, so is everyone clear with that positive thing? So if there is something positive, if there is something appreciable, please appreciate that. You will take 1.5 marks. Okay. Negative. The same example. Junior worked ongoing concern. Will I criticize that? Junior worked on going concern. Will I criticize that? I will, right? Will I say junior is not an appropriate person to work on going concern? So if something is negative, like a junior working on going concern, if something is negative, will I criticize it? Will I tell examiner that this negative issue leads to an impact on quality? Or this negative issue leads to compromisation of quality? So professional things links to quality, right? Either professional will boost your quality or professional will impair your quality. So if you think something is enhancing your quality in P7 in the question, then that is a positive thing. But if you think something is impacting negatively on your quality, then that is something negative. That is something criticizable. But if you criticize something, criticizing will take you 1.5 marks. But when you criticize something, you need to write an action. Action means, how would you rectify that? When you favor something, you're not writing an action, right? But when you are criticizing something, you're getting 1.5 marks for criticism. And when you write an action, how to overcome the negative thing, how to avoid the negative thing, then that action will give you 1 mark. Action will give you 1 mark. Is that clear? Is the marking scheme clear to everyone? Is that marking scheme clear to everyone? That if you favor, you get 1.5 marks. If you criticize, if you criticize, you will take 1 mark for the criticism and you will take 1 mark for writing in the action. I hope the marking scheme is clear. Yes on the marking scheme. Okay, that's good. I hope I get a good yes on professional now. I hope I tried making professional as clear as possible. Anything in the case where you think it's negatively impacting the quality, anything in the case which you believe is positively impacting the quality, write it down, because anything which compromise quality is a negative issue. Anything which boost quality is a positive issue. So there might be many things in question where you think this is boosting quality. There might be many things in question which you think is impairing quality. So you have to be very clear on identifying the positive things, on identifying the negative sides. And still, the past paper would play such a crucial part in terms of clearing the last aspect if anyone is still confused onto it. Anyone still noting anything from the slide which is in front of you? I'm just moving ahead to one final thing and starting off with papers. Okay, Osama, you are on the slide. You're taking something from the slide. Okay, Imad Malik, break is coming. Just a minute. Really appreciate your patience. Okay, one last thing. Now, be very clear. All of you are clear with marking schemes now? All of you know how to take marks in ethics and professional? Everyone is clear on that? Okay, second, is everyone clear on ethics? Okay, is everyone clear on the examples of professional issues I've given you? And will you read articles for broadening your knowledge? Okay, that's good enough. So let's take one last thing. You're good on marking schemes, you know the ethics, you know the professional issues, and professional issues being both positive and being negative, and you know how to deal with them, right? So that means you are one step closer to start on with the past papers now, and that really means that will give me a sense of confidence as to how you've understood this topic. Now, just moving towards the past papers, I need a quick feedback from the group that how effective has the concept building been on ethical, professional, and quality control issues, even though you need to read the article, even though you need to refine it. The first attempt students, the repeaters, has the concept building clarified something on your part, ethical and professional? Are you clear, if not even 100%, because we still need to do the past papers? But are you clearer than you were before the session? And have you found this concept building exercise so far effective? Has anyone got something resolved, or anyone think that, no, I was very bad into this topic, now I have become very good onto this topic, or I was not very clear on this topic, now I have become clear on this topic? Okay, thank you so much for that. Please keep pouring in your feedbacks about the effectiveness of the content building here and how you liked into that thing. And one last thing I would like to be responded from your side is, how many of you repeating P7 normally attempts a question on ethics or professional issues together? The P7 repeaters, it's your turn to respond in. How many of you do a question on ethical and professional issues in your prior attempts, or you normally face problems? Okay, Zishan is saying I face problems in it. Fourth retake, always attempt this question. Aksa Zahid, face problems. Okay. But do you think once the practice session is being done, those facing problems in the prior attempts on this topic, do you think after the concept building, and do you believe that after the past papers, which I will be doing shortly, you will face less problems in the March 18 exams, or you will be better equipped to answer the March 18 paper? And are you more confident now? Okay. I wish you best of luck, all the attendees, for your question on ethical and professional issues. I hope you get good out of that question and you score good onto that, because it's such a dominating part of a 100 marks paper. And I want you to ensure that you secure marks on ethical and professional issues. Okay, let's build up the past paper exercise. I need to take a Namaste break, but that is in next 10 minutes. So just let's start with a paper in front, and at 8:15 Pakistan Standard Time, we'll be coming across a break. Okay, so end of the presentation. Now it's turn to go to past papers. I hope all of you have the past papers in front, the past papers which were shared with you by ACCA. We're starting with the practice session, which is such an important thing to get down with implementation. Okay, the first question in front of you is a question from December 13. If I look at this December 13 question, and I go down, and I see the requirements. See, this is exactly the question I had been focusing on in this session. This is exactly a question which comes so many times in past paper. Identify and discuss ethical, professional issues raised and recommend actions. Now, all of you know how many marks we have for ethical issues? 1.5. How many marks we have for professional issues? 1.5. Whether that is positive or whether that is negative. And how many marks we have for actions? We have 1 mark for action. So first of all, you should know what is the marking scheme. Now, once you know the marking scheme, you have marks. For Tedbury, you have 8 marks. For Stratford, you have 6. For Benbury, you have 6. Another good thing with the question on ethical and professional issues is it's normally split into smaller parts. And I think that increase your ability to score marks on. So once you know the marking schemes, then you know exactly for 8 marks how much I have to write, for 6 marks how much I have to write, and for 6 marks how much I have to write. Okay, let's do one of the shortest one before the break and then come back with a long one. All of you can see this question, Benbury. And the question says Benbury is a listed company. So what is important here? It is a listed company. And every time I'm attempting a question on ethics and the question says it is a listed company, should I consider importance of that? Yes or no? Well, will I consider listed company as being important when I'm attempting a question on ethics? Yes, because it will help me know whether it is material or immaterial. Perfect. Okay, Benbury is a listed company and its audit committee has asked Chester to perform an actuarial valuation on the company's defined benefit pension plan. So is the company asking us to perform a service? Yes, right? So if the company is asking us to perform a service, let's see what are ethical issues with performing the service and what are professional issues with offering the service. One of the partner is a qualified actuary and has the necessary skills to perform the service. Is that a plus point? Will I tell examiner that we have competence, the partner have competence? Will I tell examiner that the partner is competent, so the quality of the service will be enhanced when the service will be offered? And the partner would be good into valuation because he must have been doing it for the last many years. So will I consider the qualified partner as one of the plus point? And will that give me a 1.5 mark score? Should I tell partner that a qualified partner or a qualified actuary is a professional issue? No. I need not to classify the issue. I'll show you the answer, but you cannot classify the issue. You need to speak of the issue. Okay, Benbury year end is 28th of Feb, and the audit planning is to commence next week. Its financial for the year 2013 includes total assets of 35 and a pension liability of $105,000. Now you might be amazed why there are numbers in ethics. Obvious, this is a listed company, so how would you judge is it material or immaterial? You need to think of the numbers. So what service we need to perform? Actuarial valuation. Now that numbers will help us with the safeguard. Is that true? Will the numbers help us to write the safeguard? Is it allowed? Is it prohibited? Yes or no from the panel, from the attendees? Is that yes and no? Yes. Will that help us to pick up the materiality factor? Yes. So will this 35 million and $105,000 would help me write the safeguard? And will that give me exactly 1 mark writing in the safeguard? Yes. Okay, so let's see what's now left. Out of the 6 marks, I've already taken my 2.5 marks. Okay, what Benbury has asked us to do, the Benbury has asked us to do an actuarial valuation, that is providing a non-audit service to an existing client. Now, if I provide an actuarial valuation, will it give rise to a self-review threat? Is that true? Is that yes? Yes. So if I provide an actuarial valuation to an existing client, will it give rise to a self-review threat? Yes. And will I get fees? Will I get fees for actuarial valuation from my existing client? From my existing client? Yes. So the fees I will get from this existing client. Existing client means a self-interest. So if I'm getting more fees from an existing client, is it a self-interest? So self-review will give me 1.5 marks. And self-interest will give me 1.5 marks. Yes. And the partner is a qualified actuary. Will that give me 1.5 marks? So I'm standing at 4.5. 1 mark is for the safeguard, whether it is allowed or disallowed. And 0.5 marks is for the calculation of materiality. Wherever in P7 you calculate materiality, wherever in P7 you calculate materiality, you take 0.5 marks. So will that make 6 marks? So please share the materiality threshold. Ali Ahmed, right after the break, I'll share the materiality threshold. Sonia Abdullah, if getting fees from a new client, new audit client, yes, if you're getting fees from a new audit client, you're considered that as a commercial factor. But if the same clients keep building upon the services, then that is the self-interest. So is everyone clear with the structure of Benbury? We have a self-review, we have a self-interest, we have a partner who is a qualified actuary, and we have a safeguard. So in terms of the materiality, can I offer this actuarial valuation? Share materiality levels, please. Yes, I will do that. I will do that. But tell me yes and no. Can I offer this actuarial valuation to Benbury? Can I offer this actuarial valuation to Benbury? Yes, Asim Iqbal is saying it's 0.3%. So 0.3% is immaterial, right? So can I offer this actuarial valuation? Yes, yes, because it's 0.3% of the assets. So all of you are finding the good answer, 0.3%. Is everyone clear with that 6 marks? Okay, that's good if everyone is clear. Okay, now that means finally, this is time for a prayer break. Considering the diversity of the students, we are taking the Isha prayer breaks. It's from 8:15, the standard time in Pakistan, 8:15 p.m. to 8:25 p.m. Pakistan standard time. Will resume at 8:25. Please ensure you revise what has gone through in the session. Keep posting your feedbacks, and I'm sharing my WhatsApp number. My WhatsApp number is +92, the Pakistan code, 333-333-238-3442. So this is my WhatsApp number. You can send me your request I'll put it you in the group, and I'll prefer the ACCA technical panel also share the link of the WhatsApp group again. So a lot of student who wants to get into the group gets into the group. Okay, I hope you had an effective session so far. A 10 minutes break, and we have another 35 minutes of brainstorming on the past paper. So has it been effective so far? Let's take a quick yes, no. So are you learning something out of it? Has it been as per your expectations when you joined the webinar at 6 and now at almost 2 hours down the road? Are you finding things going on track as per plan? You're learning something good from the session? Right, you should really appreciate the ACCA Pakistan effort in organizing these webinars for students across board so that they can get good exam techniques and get past their exams. And okay, so much. Thank you so much. I'm going on break now and will be resumed at 8:25. Okay, welcome back, and welcome back from the prayer breaks. I hope the confusion relating to the WhatsApp group has been solved. I have put in my WhatsApp number. I've got a lot of students now on WhatsApp asking me to put them onto the group. They will be added onto the group as I end the webinar. And secondly, there are a lot of queries on the group itself, which will be sorted out at the end of the webinar. And again, I am been emphasizing that if any student has a very particular query, but for some reason I cannot have a look onto that query, or I just have overlooked that query, please put that onto my email address, which was shared with you yesterday, or please put it on the WhatsApp number for a better solution. I try my best to solve most of your queries, but again, it's humanly impossible solving each and every one with a concentration on the webinar content itself. But I hope that if any one queries gets overlooked, don't get disheartened. Please put it on the WhatsApp or please put it on the email so that you get a better reply to your query. Okay, now just proceeding on with the session and coming back to that question we were discussing prior to break, Benbury, just a quick scan. There is a question coming from Muhammad Jawad Hamid. Discussing a positive professional issue would give us 1.5 marks. Yes, as there would be no action plan, then we'd be losing 1 mark for action plan due to non-discussing it. Please explain, sir. No, you have to make up your 6 marks, 7 marks, 8 marks. Now, obviously, when something is positive, Muhammad Jawad Hamid, and the positive things makes 1.5 marks, then you go ahead into the case, there might be something negative. The negative thing means another 1.5 marks and 1 mark for the action. You have to balance your 6 marks, your 7 marks, now the way you want to balance them. If you write something positive, you're getting 1.5 mark. Now out of the 7, you deduct 1.5. You're left with 5.5 marks. Then you write something negative, you take another 1.5 marks. So out of the 5.5 marks, you're left with 4. Then you write an action, you're left with 3. And you keep deducting marks for every statement you're writing in the exam paper. And wherever you think I have met my objective of 6 to 7 marks, you're done with it. Okay, back to the question. We did Benbury. I hope you're clear on Benbury. Let's take a quick look at few of the other cases so that you have an effective practice session. If I just look at the question on top of Benbury, which is the Stratford Company question. And if I look at the Stratford Company question, and I started building my points on Stratford, okay, let's get to Stratford. Let's take a different ink color so that you can distinguish between Benbury and Stratford. Okay, now if I take a look at the Stratford Company question, it says the Stratford Company. It does not say Stratford is a listed company. So automatically, I'm not concerned about it's being a listed company. I've told you in my webinar that when the question is silent, we'll assume the nature of the company as non-listed. So Stratford year end is 30th of November and the audit will commence shortly. You are aware that the company is in financial difficulties. Now see, this is exactly my point, that you need to be manager, you need to be skeptical. Now believe if you are engaged with a client who is in the financial difficulties, will you not be worried about your fees recovery? Will you not be concerned about the bad debts of your fees because the company is in the financial difficulty? Is that yes or no? Again, the panel, I need your quick answers. When the client is in the financial difficulty, being a manager, would you be concerned about bad debts of your fees? Would you be concerned about losing fees? Now, I think there was a question in the WhatsApp group, was confused between a loss of a client and a loss of a fees. Over here, we are losing the fees we can have a bad debts of fees, because the client is in the financial difficulty. So can we be skeptical about bad debts? Can we be skeptical about not getting fees? But again, I'm not worried about telling the examiner bad debts, this is an ethical issue. No, bad debts, this is a professional issue. I'm not classifying the issue. I'm saying when the company is in the financial difficulty, very spontaneous, this can lead to a risk of bad debts. This can lead to a risk of not getting the fees. Mohammed Tariq, what about ROMM? From where ROMM has come all across the ethics topic? I hope that's quite a confusing question. We're doing a question on ethics and professional issues. How does you come across a query with ROMM, and how you're relating ROMM with the concerned parameter? Okay, the company is in the financial difficulties. The managing director not getting the fees. I'm just thinking not getting the fees. I can build upon my point. I can get 1.5 marks for discussing the negative issue. The managing director, Colin, has requested that the partner accompanies him to a meeting with the bank. Now, to accompany the director in a meeting, is that an advocacy threat? Everyone agrees with that? The participants, I hope you are still into the session. You're still participating into the session. Everyone agrees accompany him to a meeting with the bank is an advocacy threat? Yes, perfect. 1.5 marks. Where a new loan will be discussed and the draft financial statements will be reviewed. Will this new loan become a component of a financial statement later? Yes or no? Will the loan, if taken, becomes a component of the financial statement? Yes. So automatically will become a self-review? It will. So another 1.5 marks for self-review. See how advocacy turns to self-review, because it will become a component of a financial statement and the auditor will later audit it. And yes, agree. It's a self-interest as well, Asim Iqbal, because if you accompany the director to a meeting, that's not free of cost, because you will be getting fees and it's your existing client. So accompany him will have fees, right? And the fees is the self-interest. Perfect, Asim Iqbal. Okay, so self-review, advocacy, bad debts. Colin has hinted that if the partner does not accompany him to a meeting with the bank, he will put the audit out to tender. Is that intimidation? Yes. The director is trying to intimidate. The director is saying that if you don't accompany me, I'll put audit out to tender. So is he trying to pressurize us? Is he trying to intimidate us? Yes, perfectly yes. So that becomes an intimidation. Now say, where are we standing? How much marks we had for Benbury to score? I think 7 marks, right? We had 7 marks from Benbury. Okay, now out of the 6 marks for Benbury, right? Okay, let me confirm that as well. We had how much marks for this? 6 marks. Perfect. That Gulam. Okay, so Stratford. Okay, so we have intimidation, 1.5 marks. We have self-review, 1.5 mark. We have advocacy, 1.5 marks. So it's all right, 4.5 marks. Bad debts already making you 6 marks. We didn't wrote any action. We're still getting marks by writing issues. You need to balance yourself. You got 4 issues, 1.5 marks each. You got 6 marks done. But even if you're writing actions, then you will write action for advocacy. Is that true? Can we accompany the partner to a meeting? Yes, because it's a non-listed company. So can we have a different partner to accompany and a different partner to do audit? Is that yes? Can we have a different partner to accompany and a different partner to do the audit? So is advocacy permissible for a non-listed company? Yes. Okay, so advocacy can have a safeguard. We can have a safeguard for advocacy. We can have an advocacy safeguard, 1 mark. Intimidation, I just told you the safeguard for intimidation in the session, right? That intimidation needs to be discussed with those charged with governance. So we have to discuss the intimidation with colon. So intimidation safeguard, you have to discuss the matter with colon. And self-review safeguard is that we can have different teams the next year. So see, where are you standing? You need to score 6 marks. But if I write all the safeguards and if I write all the issues, I'm not taking 6, I'm taking more than 6, I'm taking almost like 9 marks. So for a listed company, can another partner attend the meeting, Sabah Khan? No, for listed companies, such advocacies are prohibited. You need to consider the amount of loan, Sabah Khan. If the loan amount is material, then for a listed company, you cannot advocate on that. But if the loan amount is immaterial, then you can advocate on that for a listed company. So I hope, Sabah, you are clear with that. What is the safeguard for advocacy threat? The safeguard for advocacy threat here for Stratford, Ali Ahmed, the Stratford case, being a non-listed company, we can have the meeting with the bank. We can have a different partner meeting. We can have a different partner conducting the audit. Different teams and different partners for both self-review and advocacy. Perfect, Amjad Ali. That should be the answer for both. Perfect. Action for advocacy, that has already been discussed, Essen. Okay, so are you getting some sense how you need to involve yourself in a case? And you read case, and when you're reading the case, you identify a problem. And when you identify a problem, you need to explain the problem, irrespective whether that is an ethical problem or whether that is a professional problem. So what you should have in mind, the marks, and then 1.5 marks. And read the case, and identify issues. Please don't be concerned about the class of the issue. Don't be concerned about the nature of the issue. Just be concerned about writing the issue down and scoring 1.5 marks. Okay, I hope you're clear with Stratford and Benbury. I need to exit from this question, need to see some more equations so that we have a better revision by the end of the time for webinar. Okay, from December 13, I'm moving downwards. Okay, from December 13, I'm moving downwards. I'm taking the question. I need to show you one thing basically. Okay, see this question, June 13, question 2, because there were a lot of students asking for the question 2. Okay, if you look at this question 2 in front of you, June 13 exam, see the requirements. The requirement says evaluate the quality control, ethical and professional matters. So the examiner has brought quality here. Now, in the last question, it was ethical and professional, right? But I hope everyone is clear. When the examiner used the word professional, does it include ethics? Does it include ethics? So when the examiner asks you professional, so professional includes quality control? Yes, but over here the examiner has split them. The quality is separate, the professional is separate. And you know the list of quality control issues we just discussed in the session. Now marks, right? 13 marks. For every quality control issue, I'll get 1.5. For every professional issue, I'll get 1.5. For every ethical issue, I'll get 1.5. Is that true? So I should know the marking schemes. Then I should go to the case and I should start reading the case in terms of identifying how many marks should I be taking on. So no class of issue, right? No class of issue. Just need to work upon the issue itself. Let's see the case because that will make things very clarified. Okay, I'm reading the case. Please be on focus. I'm reading from the second paragraph here. You are a manager in the audit department of Kennel, are responsible for conducting the engagement quality control review on listed audit clients. You have discussed the group audit with some of the junior members, one of whom made the following comments on how it was planned and carried out. So being a manager, you're asking the junior how the audit was planned and carried out. So the junior is giving you a feedback, and within the feedback, you need to find out the problems. Let's see what the junior is telling us. The audit has been quite time pressured. The audit has been quite time pressure. That means we were under time pressure. That means if we were under time pressure, we would have been under rush. Is that true? And if we had been under rush, that would have compromised the quality. The quality would have compromised. Yes. So if you're working on a time pressured audit, then the time pressured audit means that we are in rush, and in rush means that you're compromising the quality. Yes, exactly, Simon Mercer, due to time pressure. The audit manager told the junior not to perform some of the planned procedures. Is that a good instruction on part of the manager telling the junior not to perform the planned procedures? Is that something good to deviate from planning? No. So will I criticize the manager? Will I say the manager has not given a right instruction? The manager has not given the right instruction to the junior because you cannot deviate from the planned procedures, right? Planning is fundamental. Planning is very important. You cannot just ask the junior deviate from the planning whenever you wish so. So it's bad. We need to criticize, right? Agree. Okay. He also instructed us not to use the firm's statistical sampling method. Is that another good instruction? Is he giving us a good instruction not to use the firm statistical sampling method? No, exactly. So should we follow the firm policies? Should we follow the firm policies? We should follow the firm policies, right? So is the manager telling us to deviate from the firm policy? So is the manager telling us something good or bad? Right? So the manager is giving us a wrong instruction, right? And a wrong instruction again needs to be criticized. Then he says it would be quicker in selecting a trade receivable sample, as it would be quicker to pick the sample based upon our own judgment. I hope everyone agrees. You're all auditors, you're becoming auditors. If we pick a sample based upon our judgment, is that good? Is a judgmental sample good? Is a statistical sample good? Is a judgmental sample good? Is a statistical sample good? Is judgmental a bad sample? Yes, statistical is a better sample, right? So if I pick a sample based upon my judgment, and whose judgment? The junior judgment. So will a junior pick a good sample? Will a junior pick a good sample? Absolutely no. So will I criticize the junior picking up a sample on his judgment? Yes. Now see how many marks I got? Time pressure, 1.5 marks. The manager telling us not to perform the planned procedures, another 1.5 marks. Then not to use the firm's statistical method, another 1.5 marks. And then to pick up a sample based upon our judgment, 6 marks in that paragraph. Criticizable, rush. I think all were negative. There was nothing positive in that paragraph. So I have to criticize. I have to criticize all the marks. Okay, let's go down. Two of the juniors were given the task of auditing the payables and going concern. Can a junior work on going concern? Is that true? Is that true? Can a junior work on going concern? No. So if he works on going concern, will that compromise the evidence? Will that compromise the evidence? Yes. So a junior working on going concern, again, will I criticize that and I'll take my 1.5 marks? The manager asked us to review each other work as it would be a good training for us, and he didn't have time to review everything. Is that something wrong? The manager is not conducting a review and he's asking the junior to conduct a review of another junior. Right? So if a junior conducts a review of another junior, how will he find problems? How will he find issues? The manager should have done it, but the manager is not doing it. It seems that the manager is very reluctant in the audit. The manager was giving wrong instructions. The manager was giving a wrong guidance. Now the manager is asking us to review each other work. I think we can blame the manager here a lot because the manager is not demonstrating the professional behavior. Yes, the manager is not demonstrating his professional attitude. in terms of being a manager here. You can criticize that. Okay, last paragraph. I was discussing the group tax position with the financial controller. Now the junior was discussing the group tax position when she said she was struggling with the deferred tax. As I had just studied the deferred tax at a college, I did the calculation of the deferred tax for her. Can a junior do a deferred tax calculation, that too for a group? Is that something simple, complex? That's very complex, right? Deferred tax, that for a group. And who's determining the deferred tax? The junior. So can a junior determine the deferred tax perfectly? Obviously no, right? Obviously no. So if the junior is determining the deferred tax, is there a chances of errors in the deferred tax he must have calculated? So can we get another 1.5 marks here? Junior determining the deferred tax. And the manager said this saved time as we now would not have to do the audit of the deferred tax figure. That's a self-review thread. We determined the deferred tax, right? And the deferred tax gets to the financial statement. Now, because we are doing the audit of the company and the deferred tax calculated by the junior gets to the financial statement, and because we know that we determined the deferred tax, so will we be skeptical in reviewing the deferred tax? We will not be, right? We will not be skeptical in reviewing the deferred tax because that deferred tax was calculated by the team itself. So when it gets to the financial statement, we will have a self-review threat. So self-review threat would give us another 1.5 marks. See, I think we are near to 13 marks required. Make a sense. There can be any new case in front of you in the March 18 exams with the requirement evaluate the ethical, quality, professional issues. You need to be in the case. You need to know how you can score marks. Every statement, whether positive or negative, is giving you marks. You need to think about it. You need to think whether that issue is positively impacting, whether that issue is negatively impacting, and just write it down. Don't be worried about classifying the issue. Don't be worried about a childish approach as if I'm making a column. This column is ethical, this column is professional, this column is quality control. No. I just proven my lecture. That at times ethics relates with quality. If ethics is compromised, the quality is compromised. Are they not together? They are together, right? Cannot a lack of professional behavior compromise the quality? A lack of professional behavior compromise the quality? So are they not correlated? They are correlated, right? They are correlated. So you cannot make columns like a childish approach and say, okay, this is ethical. Okay, this is professional. No, this is quality. This is not P7. Absolutely, this is not P7. P7 is that you are a manager, get into the case and bring things out of the case study. Bring things out of the case study and judge whether it is positive or judge whether it is negative. I hope you got some sense from this question 2 of the June 13 exams. I hope you can get involved in the cases. Was that exercise effective? I still have another exercise in the last 10 minutes. I hope that will clarify things to maximum. But have you got sense of getting into a question? How to get into a question? Whether how to pick up marks? How many times you all lose marks by just not picking points, just ignoring points? But I have seen so many students saying it's my 6th attempt, it's my 7th attempt, it's my 4th attempt, it's my 3rd attempt. Obviously, when you're doing the same mistake again and again, you're not identifying the case, you're not identifying the problems in the case, you keep repeating the same problems, how will you get past in P7? You need to ensure that you find your problems, you find your mistakes, and this webinar by ACCA Pakistan will help you a lot because this platform, I hope, is giving you the direction to the paper, and I hope this is making your life easier, that you are involved into a webinar which can bring you closer to success. Okay, one last exercise, running short of time. I need to emphasize on that as well because I need to ensure. Please, my own drafted answers is being shared as part of these question papers with with you by ACCA. Please read my answers. You will assure that in my answer, I have never written, this is ethical, this is professional. I have just explained the problem. I have not stated in my answer anywhere, this is ethical, this is professional. And for the ease, right? I have given in my answer that wherever I end a sentence, I've given 1.5 mark. So that you know, okay, where are you making marks? How are you making marks? I tried making my answers as illustrative as possible so that you know how you're accumulating your marks. But please do read my answers before the session tomorrow. And if you have any queries on my answers and writing of answers, please be into the group, in the WhatsApp group, asking me for a clarification. Okay, one last thing quickly. If I look at this paper, December 15, question number 4. Right, let's find something from this case. Okay, one last example, positive, negative. I'm reading the B part. It says, the planning for the audit of Renoir Company's financial statement will commence shortly. In preparation for what? In preparation for the planning, right? The partner telephoned the Renoir finance director to set up a planning meeting and to remind him that the fees relating to the tax engagement from the previous year is still outstanding. Is that something positive, that the partner is contacting the director and telling the director that I need to have a planning meeting with you? Does that mean the partner is aware of his responsibilities? Does that mean the partner knows what he should do? But no, it's not negative. Imran Riaz, Ifra Anjum, this is positive. That means the partner knows that I need to contact the director. The partner knows that they need to have a planning meeting with the director. Remember, every partner needs to have a planning meeting before the start of the audit, and the partner should call the client to set up a planning meeting. The partner is fully aware of his responsibility. He called the director. He wants to set up a planning meeting. So setting up a planning meeting by the partner, is that something positive? Is that something positive? The attendees, is that something positive? So the partner is asking for setting up a planning meeting. So should I take that as my plus point? And in that meeting, he is reminding Jim that the fees is outstanding. Is that a good safeguard? Definitely yes. The partner is telling the director that my fees is outstanding even. I think that's a good safeguard towards the recovery of the fees. He's reminding him. If I or you have to take a safeguard in the exam paper, obviously a safeguard for an outstanding fees is to remind the client. So is the partner taking a good safeguard reminding the client that the fees is outstanding? Does that mean the partner is aware of the recovery of the fees? So the partner reminding is a plus point. Appreciate that. The partner calling the director, appreciate that. So wherever you are appreciating, you're scoring 1.5 each. So first the partner call, then the partner remind. So that means these are 1.5 and 1.5, making a 3 marks answer. Mr. Cassett raised concern about the conduct of the previous audit, stating numerous examples when he and his staff has been interrupted when they were busy. I think this is very natural when we go for audit. When we go for audit, there are interruptions. Is that so? When we go for audit, there are interruptions. We cause interruptions to the management. But are interruptions avoidable? We can avoid interruptions. We can reduce interruptions. Can we reduce interruptions? Yes, we can, right? We can reduce interruptions by providing a list of information to client. We can provide a list of information to client. We can provide a list of information to client that can reduce the interruptions. Again, that safeguard is written in my answer. Please have a review of that. But I think interruptions are acceptable. Interruptions is something we can avoid to a significant extent. The Mr. Cassett wants guarantee that this year audit will be more efficient, less intrusive, and cheaper. Can the audit be more efficient? Yes or no? Can the audit be more efficient than the last year? Yes. Audit can be efficient, right? because this is a recurring audit, and a recurring audit can be efficient. Another 1.5 marks. Can it be less intrusive? Can there be less interruptions? Yes. So can there be less interruptions? Yes. Can it be cheaper? What comes to your mind when we say cheaper? Will it compromise quality? Will it compromise quality? Anything which is cheaper compromise quality? Yes, yes. Muhammad Tahir Ansari, low balling, agree. Perfect, perfect. So I hope you can see the answer for the 7 marks. But the bottom line is you should know how to identify the issues. You should know how to identify issues. Please do read my answers for the session coming tomorrow. I'll be opening my session with a recap of what we did today. I'll be emphasizing a bit more on ethical and professional at the start of my session tomorrow. And I'll be emphasizing on some of the techniques we learned today on ethics and professional, and I hope things will become far clear over the day and tomorrow once we do the recap of the topic today. Please do the past papers you have with you on this topic. Please see my answers. Please see my answers. Please ensure that you're finding the positive things and the negative things, and you're commenting on both the positive and the negative. Okay, let's do a final recap. The topic today was ethical and professional issues. We had concept buildings and we had some practice to past papers. We will be taking a recap of it tomorrow on day 3 as well before starting on with the agenda of day 3. Please ensure you practice. Please ensure you read my answers. Please ensure that if you have any questions which were raised but were not answered due to time limitations, please do keep posting them onto the WhatsApp group. I hope you had an effective session today. Need a quick respond within a minute and 2 left for the webinar to end. I hope you had an effective session. I hope you learned something from the webinar today, and I hope you had something, you had clear minds, and you will get into the case much more clear, and you will identify problems from the case much more clear. Ethics, this topic is so subjective, right? You need to bring clarity. Within the time constraint, I tried to be best as possible. I tried to be as good as possible in terms of bringing the topic closer to exam success. But I believe you need to involve. You need to get with practice. The more you practice, the better for you. And I hope you had a good session today. You had an effective session today, and you had a good learning from the session today. I'll see you tomorrow, the same time, 6 to 9 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time for the day 3 of the webinar, where the topic is evidence. And I'll be looking forward to your feedback on how good the session was, or how excellent or how satisfactory the session was in terms of your feedback coming on my WhatsApp group. Okay, then I say thank you to all of you for being on this webinar today, and will be into the session tomorrow from 6 to 9. Hope you had a good session. Thank you.